5 signs that you are not embracing executive presence. We're going to be diving into that subject today. Knowing what to do and doing it are two very different things, right? I know I should be taking my vitamins every day. I know at my age I need to be doing weight-bearing exercise so I don't get osteoporosis. I know those things, but do I do them consistently? No, I don't. I'm absolutely sure that you know what executive presence is and how you should be applying it to your communication approaches. I bet you could look around your organization and go, executive presence. No, you know intuitively what it is, who's got it, and how you should be applying it. I'm sure you could tell me exactly what it is, but are you doing it? Are you doing it consistently? And are you doing it up the chain of command as well as down? Right, down is generally is much easier for most people. Up is definitely a little bit more challenging. So in our organization, we talk about leadership as an image and a set of actions that you take that create the perception of you. Right, that image is not how you dress. It's not how you have your hair. It's not the shoes you wear. It's none of those things. It's how you show up using your body, your breath, and your voice, as well as what you say. So those images, that image of you, and the actions that you take, and the message that you're delivering, they need to align. And when you do, that generally means there's going to be a high perception of your executive presence in your organization. When that image and those actions, they don't align, then there's generally a low perception of you within the organization. Right? Sometimes it's a little bit difficult for us humans to access what you're doing really well, right? Our brains are hardwired to look at the gap. They look at the things that we're not yet doing. So if I said to you, have a look, assess yourself, see what you're doing, see how well you are engaging your EP when you're communicating in your organization, you might find it a bit difficult. However, if I say to you, take a look and see if you're doing any of these 5 things, because that shows you're not embracing your executive presence every time you communicate. Your brain is going to go, oh yeah, I can do that. That's a much easier process. So I'm going to give you 5 things that I see people doing that mean they're not embracing their executive presence. So as you're going through and listening to what I'm saying, see if you can answer this question. Are you doing this some of the time? Are you doing this always? Or are you never doing this? If you're never doing any of these things, then you're generally using executive presence in all the communication that you are doing in your organization. If you're doing it sometimes, it might be it's to do with a person, it could be a topic, it could be a particular team. So take a look and see what the pattern is. If you're doing it always, then we might need to do some work to really help you embrace your executive presence. And usually that's going to be mindset work. But let's dive into those 5 things so you can assess, see if you're doing these sometimes, never, always. So the first thing that I see when clients are not really embracing their executive presence is a body rock. So when they're talking, we might see a side to side rock. It can be quite slow. It can be quite fast. We'll often see a forward to back motion. And it doesn't matter whether you're sitting or whether you're standing. So if you were sitting, it would be a rock from the waist forward, particularly noticeable in virtual situations. But there's a movement. And what we're doing is we're self-soothing, right? We were babies. We were all rocked as babies. If we're parents, we will have rocked. So in our biological systems, that gentle sway side to side, forward and backwards is a way of self-soothing, right? Our audience unconsciously understands exactly what we're doing. But the impact of that is that unconsciously, they'll know that you're unsettled. They'll know that you're self-soothing. It gives the impression that you are not in control of either yourself or the situation. And it absolutely sends a message to the people in the room that you are not ready for more, right? That this is as much as you can cope with and manage at the moment. Now, the second thing I see is pace and pause. Generally, there's too fast and generally there's no pausing. So when we want to create that aligned image, we want to show that you are in control of the material, not that it's in control of you. If you're not using executive presence, your pace and your pause control is going to be off. And these are the two most common things I see. So it's fast and there's no pauses, right? So the image that you're sending out to the audience is, I just want to get this over and done with, and I just want to sit down. And it absolutely sends that signal to the audience that you are not ready for more. Plus, your audience is generally left quite confused because it's been so fast, they haven't had time to process the content. The other thing that I see is it's steady, but there are no pauses. So we get a nice steady delivery. It's not difficult to follow, but there's no variety. So it's understandable, but it's not very inspiring, right? And the signal that we're sending to the audience is, I'm a bit bored with this, so you can be bored with it too. You don't have to listen. Again, neither of those images are ones of executive presence. We're not aligning that image and the actions and the messaging at all. So the third thing that I often see when clients are not embracing their executive presence is there's no clear North Star to the conversation, and there's no clear path to get to the North Star. When we're not using our executive presence, we are generally trying to prove to the people that we're talking to that we know what we're talking about. So we throw the kitchen sink at it, right? The content just becomes too much. We overstuff our slides. We go off on tangents, trying to prove the little bits that we're trying to prove on the edges of it. There's just no clear path and no clear North Star as to where we're trying to get you. It becomes informational download rather than insight. And the impact is that we can be seen as a field expert, but we're not really a next level leader. So we need to make sure we've got a very clear North Star and a very clear path, information path to get to that North Star. The fourth thing that I see when our clients are not embracing executive presence is to do with the voice. It loses energy at the ends of sentences. So it's like the voice literally kind of just runs down, like the battery is coming out. So to give you an example of this would be, when you're doing that, you're not supporting your ideas until the end of the sentence. And can you see how if I just sort of drop off the energy towards the sentence, it drifts away? There's nothing kind of propelling you as a listener to keep listening to the ends of the sentence. So it gives permission to the audience to dismiss your ideas. You're not backing them. You're not energetically, vocally backing what you're saying. So why should they? Again, it just means that image, the actions and the messages, they're not aligned. Now, the final thing that I see when clients are not embracing their executive presence is really poor or absent gesture. So absent gesture, nothing there, no gesturing happening at all. So hands are generally by their sides, in their pockets or clenched. So you're holding your fingers together. The poor gesture would be very repetitive gesture. So, a sweeping gesture like this that goes on and on and on, but it doesn't really say anything about the content that you're saying, and it becomes really quite distracting. It means that your body isn't taking up the natural space that it has a right to. It means that you're frightened of taking up more space, either because you're worried about what people think of you, or you don't want to impact on taking away space from others. Essentially, what it shows is that there's internal narratives that are going on that are not helpful to you as a leader, not helpful to your audience. So we really want to be controlling those internal narratives so that we can gesture, so it really underlines our content, not undermines it. So when we've got that internal narrative, our gesture is going to feel off to the audience. So people who do have executive presence will be still. They'll be really grounded in the bottom half of their body. They're going to be able to vary the pace according to the complexity of the message, the audience, and the desired outcome. So where they're trying to get people to. They can play with the pace, and they can play around with the pauses to make it make sense. There will be a really clear pathway. So if you've got executive presence, your content has a clear pathway. This is what I'm trying to get you to. This is the North Star. This is the way that I want you to think about the journey that we're taking to the North Star. So it's really clear for their audience. People with executive presence, they don't allow their voices to drop towards the end of sentences. They're really backing their ideas. and they're not giving permission for the audience to dismiss it. They're also going to be using gesture to underline their content. So, how are you doing? Are you always using executive presence? So, i.e., you're not doing any of those things I just mentioned. Are you sometimes doing the things that I mentioned, but sometimes not? And are you never doing the things that I just mentioned? If you're never doing them, amazing. You are embracing executive presence. If you're always doing them, then there's some work to be done. If you're sometimes doing them, brilliant, right? You're halfway there. How do you pivot what you're already doing and bring it into the spaces where you're not yet doing it? If you are interested in learning about executive presence and how you can really up-level it, come to our masterclass. It's happening in May. It's 3 days, 3 hours. So it's an hour a day for 3 days. You will learn so much about executive presence and be able to figure out how you can apply it even better in your communication. Take care, and we'll see you really soon. Bye for now.